My name is Anita Benefor, and I am one of the placement students at For a Safer Space from York University. This presentation is on shopping while Black. What is shopping while Black defined as? It's also known as consumer racism or retail racial profiling, refers to the practice of salespeople in stores treating customers of color as if they are shoplifters. It may also refer to the store personnel treating minority clients like they don't have enough money to make purchases. Sales associates in these situations may actually ignore Black customers or refuse to show them high-end goods when they ask to see them. Impacts of consumer racism. Racial stigma in retail settings impacts the consumptive process for Blacks in two central ways. First, the retail settings are often sites of anti-Black bias is made evident, requiring Black shoppers to navigate racial hierarchies while procuring goods. Second, discrimination alters the experience of shopping, arguably raising the cost and reducing the rewards derived from consumption. When a store sales staff is hesitant to serve Black customers or suspects that they are prospective shoplifters, shopping is no longer a form of leisure. So it becomes a chore. It becomes something that you don't want to do. And usually shopping is like an escape for a lot of people. They do it as a leisure activity. So imagine now you have to think to yourself, okay, when I walk into this store, I might potentially be ignored, or I might be followed because of the color of my skin. It's ridiculous, but it's so normal to a lot of us who experience this that it's almost second nature. That is why a lot of us enjoy online shopping, to be honest. Shopping while Black. I have felt the eyes of sales clerks upon me as I shopped in expensive stores. Even when I'm not being actively watched, I find myself being very aware of my actions. My thoughts too often run along these lines. Don't open your purse and reach in for a Tic Tac or your keys until you leave the store. Make a grand gesture of replacing the item that you picked up to examine more closely. Don't stand looking at the same item for too long. Don't want to be accused of anything. I realize that I am a product of our society. I have been trained to know that I was, at comedian Chris Rocks has put it, born a suspect and to behave accordingly. This is Nandra Kareem Niddle, and she just talks about her her experience while shopping as a Black person, and I can wholeheartedly agree with this. I've experienced this in luxury stores here in Toronto. I've experienced this in stores that are not even luxury. It's just the assumption that Black people are criminals is why when you are in retail spaces or settings, I guess store clerks or sales associates tend to watch you a little bit harder. I actually have a funny story. When I was working at Sephora too, but when I was at Forever 21, at the time, they had just opened a location in Vaughan Mills, and there was a lot of high school students that would come after school, and that area predominantly is a lot of rich European kids. So they would come to Forever 21. They would purchase items with their parents' credit cards or with their own money, or they would steal. But whenever a group of white girls would come into the store and steal, my supervisor would never say anything to them. He was actually quoted once saying that he's scared to say something, and he actually preferred if the sales associates, so me and other workers could go and approach the girls so that they would stop stealing. But whenever there was a group of Black girls, whether it's one Black girl or multiple Black girls or a Black woman with a stroller, certain staff would follow them around the store or talk on the walkie-talkies and make sure that whoever is working in the section that they're shopping in, keep an eye on them. And it was so sad because this was a common thing. And I actually had multiple conversations with my supervisor about this, but she made it seem like it was protocol, but it wasn't protocol. She was definitely racial profiling. And it just speaks volumes about how Black and white people or consumers are viewed. The killing death of George Floyd, which began with a retailer's 911 call, has inspired protests and a push for police reform. It prompted a closer look at the everyday places where Black Americans face discrimination, not only in the interactions with police, but also at the workplace, grocery stores, and shopping malls. So could you believe that? Had this worker not called 911, do you think the events that led to his death would have happened? I don't think so. So why is this an issue? Evidence from the book Shopping While Black: Consumer Racial Profiling in America suggests that the sales associates tend to be more suspicious of Black consumers and unfairly target them with surveillance and calls to the police, even though research consistently shows that shoplifters come from equally all races. Contrast this with the experience of the prototypical ideal consumer, the middle-class white woman. A 2006 ethnographic study of toy stores not only found that middle-class white women were often given preferential treatment, but also that the police were never called on them even when their behavior was aggressive. This is very interesting. I've seen many memes, I've seen many videos online where white women are creating scenes in stores. They are never aggressively asked to leave. They are never escorted out by security. Managers usually come and talk to them to kind of calm them down, even if they are being belligerent. But if it's a Black person, it's a completely different experience. Studies have also shown that Blackness cheapens the brand image. A qualitative assessment of Black reports of racial stigma and discrimination in retail settings reveal that race can change the meaning and status attached to goods when they are sought out or owned by racial minorities. The association of Blackness in consumerism distorts branding and status, specifically when Black people are involved. However, when non-Black people consume and partake in Black culture, it is redefined as marketable, exclusive, and held with the highest regard. So this reminds me of blackfishing. This is when white women kind of cosplay the Black aesthetic, or you can even think of the Kardashians. Whenever they have braids in their hair, it's seen as trending or fashionable. But beforehand, when Black women had those same hairstyles, they were seen as ghetto, and it was just more of a negative connotation. Experiences of racism while shopping. So to the picture on the screen here, we have a Black customer who looks like she is being patted down by either security or a store clerk. Racial profiling. Your every move being followed from the moment you walk into a store. Here's an example. After R&B star SZA said that she had security follow her or called on her while she was shopping at Sephora in California, the company closed all of its U.S. stores for an hour to host inclusive workshops for employees. So this is a picture of it. We are closed this morning to host diversity and inclusivity workshop for our employees. These values have always been at the heart of Sephora, and we're excited to welcome you when we are open. Another point, sales associates disregarding you completely because they assume you cannot afford their products. This is another common practice in a lot of luxury stores, I find. Being ignored in favor of white shoppers. Serious attacks on dignity and liberty, like being detained and questioned after making a purchase or handcuffed on suspicion of shoplifting. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this, but let's just say you purchase something from a store and the cashier forgets to take the metal detector off. You walk out of the store and the alarm goes off. Some employees who work at these stores typically will let you go, whereas others will make a scene, pat you down, ask you to go through your bag, tell you that it's protocol, but you know that they're doing more than what they need to do. And that's the assumption that, this person has probably stolen something, when in actuality, it was the mistake of the cashier. To the left here, we have a picture, and it says, Ohio woman called police on Black man loading groceries in parking lot because she believed his car was stolen. So I'm assuming in this situation, he probably had a really nice car and he was putting his groceries away, and, Black people can't have nice things. She decided, let me call the police. Another thing that a lot of retailers do on the low is they have certain code names for certain for certain customers that walk into the store. Urban Outfitters was recently outed by a past employee for using the term Nick or Nickies or Nicole's for customers like that. And typically those customers that they were calling Nickies were Black. They obviously denied these allegations and said that their company is not for any sort of racial profiling. However, I beg to differ. Another example of racial profiling in the U.S., Walmart, Walgreens, and CVS kept multiple Black hair products, not multiple. So let me explain this. When you go to Walmart, for instance, in certain neighborhoods in the city here in Toronto, more, I guess, low income communities. I'll give you an example. There's an area in Toronto called Chalk Farm. There's a big Walmart over there. Every time I go there, all the makeup products and all of the black hair products are literally locked away. However, the white products are in the aisles free. There's no barriers. You don't need anybody to open anything for you. And I find that very interesting because when I'm in my neighborhood in Brampton or when I'm in Vaughan, that isn't the case. So clearly, these racist policies are showing their, I guess, their ugly heads through policy in store, and then when they're called out for these sort of things, they deny it. They say that this is only protocol. It is not about race. But why is it that black products are locked away? And I remember when COVID had started, similar situations were being exposed in like Shoppers Drug Marts and different retailers, because at the time the government had put a mandate on essential and non-essential products. White hygiene products were not barred off. However, black natural hair products were, which did not make sense to me because black hair stores were actually not deemed essential. So you don't want us to buy our products for our hair in our black owned stores. Yet if you have it available in like a Walmart or a Shoppers Drug Mart, you've locked it away and you've deemed it unessential. So are we not allowed to wash our hair? It just didn't make sense to me. But obviously, when they were called out for these things, then they made it a point to remove the barring, and they said that it was a mishap. But no, it was not a mishap. Here's a case study with Aritzia. They actually went viral after a former employee, she was a manager, a black manager, spoke on her experience working there. She said that she had worked there for about 5 months as an associate manager, yet she was not treated fairly or similarly to her white counterparts who were managers as well. Usually when she worked, she was only working cashier shifts, and cashier shifts were not typically for managers. She was also asked multiple times to vacuum and clean the store in ways that managers of other races were not asked to do. So when she saw last June that Aritzia was one of the many brands that were, on the bandwagon for supporting Black Lives Matter, she had to call them out. And when she called them out, she was actually very surprised at the level of feedback she got from current workers, former employees, and also customers who also shared similar experiences of feeling unwanted, feeling, their patronage was not accepted or not valued over their white counterparts, and just other things that were going on in the community or in the stores. I'll read some of the examples. So here is the former manager. Her name is Carissa. She was vacuuming, and she took a picture of herself doing that at the store. And here it says a task that other managers weren't asked to perform. Although she was hired as an associate manager with lots of experience, she was only given cashier shifts and often left out of very important managerial meetings and social outings with her coworkers. I guess the one situation that really put her over the edge was when they actually fired another black coworker of hers, actually the only black coworker of hers, without her consent, and they didn't let her know about it until after he was fired. She was the only black manager in the store, and while working there, she often felt unheard and had no one to turn to. When she addressed her concerns to her training manager, she was often met with denial of differential treatment and told that these were normal protocols by the company. So I'm just going to read some of the tweets some former employees or current employees made on the thread. One girl said, worked with the company as an SSA and interned with corporate. They wanted me to help with hiring even though my degree was far from HR. I would often recommend exceptional black and people of color, but they rarely made the cut because they didn't have the Aritzia look. And if you guys go into Aritzia, you know what the look is. It's usually thin white women or Asian girls. maybe one or two token black girls, but typically it's the Model S frame or that hipster sort of cool girl vibe, but it's very rare that they will have multiple black people working on the floor. And if they are black women, they typically are racially ambiguous or mixed or very fair skinned. If you see a dark skinned black girl there, they will not be multiple in the store, maybe one or two at most. But the majority of the women working there are white and Asian. Anyways, let me continue. They had to have unique features and bodies if they weren't white. There's little to no diversity. Sales and clientele are probably what got me this far. If you don't got that, higher pay and training is spent on girls that fit their brand. Besides code names given to clients that walked into the stores like A's for Asians and TW, time wasters, we weren't giving training for styling darker complexions and varying body types. Don't even get me started about subliminal racism displayed through the store music, opportunities, and leadership. Another person quoted, "This store loves to play Little Baby and Gunna, which are very famous black rappers from Atlanta, through the speakers to attract more traffic, but would rather go bankrupt before they hire a more diverse team over it." And then Carissa responded as facts. Love to pull up a black playlist for peak hours. Peak hours are like their busy hours throughout the week. Don't think that we ain't seen that play. Here are some more accounts of Aritzia clients and staff experiences of racism and discrimination. I also want to point out the person that they fired had an sales per hour of $700 plus while I was working there. I managed her and I saw her numbers. So this is a story of one of the girls. I'm going to read it to you. During my time there, they also fired blank. Not long after you left, actually. Who always wore Aritzia, always was on time. KPIs were doing more than well, worked the script, and one day she came late but also brought her mom to shop. And on the same day, she was laid off. Another situation here. It says, "Hi, I saw your post on Twitter and I had my own experience at Aritzia Yorkdale, Babaton, where my white manager would call me out whenever I spent extra time helping out my black clients, like every single time. She would say I'm wasting my time and would only want me to go and help white mother daughters. I only worked there for a month because I couldn't handle the fake shit any longer. It was disgusting." And then Carissa replied, "Your managers don't even want your sales associates to quote unquote waste time on black shoppers." This is highly problematic, highly, because that sends a message that black patronage is not wanted and that they don't value them as customers. But yet it's okay to listen or play rap music constantly, because if you walk past Aritzia, they do have urban music playing. So what does that say about the black influence? You guys like to pick and choose what is beneficial for you, but you don't actually want black people in your stores spending money. So Aritzia had to respond to the backlash because the thread was pretty viral. It attracted a lot of attention. They made a statement regarding the viral thread and made promises to address their racist business practices within the company for staff of all levels through diversity trainings, alongside donating $100,000 of their sales to Black Lives Matter and the NAACP in honor of George Floyd. So here are some of the things that they had promised that they will do. Conduct a comprehensive review of our policies and practices across the entire company, introduce mandatory diversity and inclusion trainings, which include instructions on micro inequalities, unconscious biases, and stereotypes, extending respectful rape workplace training and harassment training to all employees, launching a diversity and inclusion survey by the end of this month that will give our employees the opportunity to provide their thoughts and anonymous feedback to help us gain deeper understanding of what's happening and how our employees are feeling across the business, establishing an advisory group of voices across all levels, workplaces, and geographies to provide first-hand perspective and advice, and lastly, hiring dedicated diversity inclusion experts. So to the left, we have the CEO and president, Benefor Wong, who shared with CTV News her, I guess, thoughts on their former employees' experience and the Twitter thread. We are deeply disappointed when we learned of the comments Carissa made about working at Aritzia, which we became aware of when she posted public statements. We have spoken to her, launched a full investigation, and will take proper actions if needed. While we disagree with many of her underlying facts, her experience touches on matters that are deeply important to who we are. We are focused on listening, learning, and taking action, and recognize that we ourselves must lead and inspire change. So to me, that apology just seems generic. I feel like she had to make a statement because it was garnering a lot of attention online. I don't think it's authentic. I don't think it was genuine. She just knew that she had to save face for the company, because if she didn't say anything, they would get canceled, because a lot of people were not happy with the thread and they were sharing a lot of instances of discrimination and of racism, be it employees and actual customers. In her saying that she does not agree with many of her underlying facts, this is somebody who worked for the company, somebody's experience. How can you say that you don't agree? Just because that is not your experience as an Asian woman doesn't necessarily mean you can invalidate what your Black former employee is sharing with you and multiple other employees and customers. She also went on to talk about Carissa's comments on the Black staff that was fired without her knowledge. She says, regardless of title or the task, we are all expected to do whatever needs to get done. No employee is seen to be too senior and no task too small or unimportant. And with respect to the Black employee that was fired, when Lewis wasn't part of the decision-making process, the spokesperson said Lewis was not the worker's supervisor or manager, and it would not have been appropriate for her to have been consulted. So again, they are minimizing Carissa's experience. If I am a manager at your store and you guys are trying to get rid or fire an employee, isn't that a conversation amongst all managers and not just some managers? I don't feel like Jennifer Wong's approach to this matter was professional, but again, she's going to do what's best for her business. Diversity training, effective business practice or not? Here's a quote from Pittman stating, but inclusivity training is unlikely to solve persistent discrimination in our society. In some cases, it may even move the needle in the opposite direction. Companies with diversity training actually tend to become less diverse over time. Instead of looking outside to find consultants and diversity trainers, firms should use their power and expertise to devise strategies not only to reduce retail racism, but to proactively improve the retail experience of non-white people. So what is a better solution or some better solutions to help solve this issue of racial discrimination for Black customers? Companies just need to ban outright the use of store clerks following customers or Black customers in the store, or security, and of calling the police on Black customers because a sales clerk deems somebody suspicious. There's ways to deal with issues regarding stealing. There's other ways to deal with reprimanding a customer. Using force and violence is not always the best solution, clearly, as we've seen multiple cases in the U.S., particularly George Floyd's case. There was no reason why an officer needed to kneel on his neck for 8 seconds. Was it 8 seconds? Sorry, 8 minutes. He couldn't have had a conversation with him. But again, a lot of these people have inherently racist ideals about Black people, so it comes out when they're interacting with Black people in negative ways, unfortunately. Some other solutions to better the overall Black experience for shoppers: asking Black clients directly about their overall shopping experience, specifically about discrimination. So in a way that really details the experience. So what happened, what store, what sales associate, so that companies can actually pinpoint the cancers in the company. If it's a particular staff that's constantly harassing Black staff at a location in Brampton, for Sephora, for example, if customers are encouraged to do this often, I think there'll be more changes because they'll have to get rid of that staff. There's only so many diversity trainings you can do for somebody that is racist. You know what I mean? Also, Sephora has a a really cool technology called Color IQ, where it finds the perfect shade for people of all hues. Maybe using that technology to find out more about the Black customer experience would actually benefit Sephora and other companies like it, instead of using money just to do diversity trainings. Because let's be honest, a lot of these trainings are done for a day or so or a couple of hours. People are not even really listening. They're just doing it because they have to, and not generally because they're interested in the information being given. If somebody feels a way about Black people or about racialized people, having one training a year is not going to help. We need to get rid of the racist people who are making the decisions and the policies for these companies at the top level, and get people of color in these positions. How can companies be making diversity decisions with staff that are all white? It doesn't make sense. They don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge, so how can they really do things that will benefit people of color? So here again, just speaking more on what I was just talking about, companies should also encourage customers to report incidents of discrimination and coaching them directly on how to do it effectively. Also, hiring more racialized staff in management and executive roles.
Black dollars equal buying power and influence. June Francis, a professor at Simon Fraser University's Beatty School of Business, told CTV News people who have had similar experiences, such as Carissa, have been individually raising these types of complaints to companies and organizations for years, often without adequate responses, and that the anti-racism movement has finally created an opportunity. People have recognized in a moment now that maybe there's a space where we can move from talk to action. Francis called this a serious movement of reckoning, during which companies need to move beyond statements and make meaningful changes. He ends this by saying, audit yourself, stop speaking, listen, step out of the center, stop capitalizing, make real change. So in essence, he's basically saying we as consumers, specifically Black consumers, have a lot of power and we have a lot of influence. If we have issues with these brands, we need to speak out. We need to go on social media. We need to share our experiences, because there's a lot of other people who are also dealing with the same, if not worse. When you out these companies, they don't like that. They need our money in order to function. You might think that, well, you're just one person, but no, it makes a difference. Had Carissa not gone on Twitter and created that thread, she probably wouldn't have gotten a response. And she was shocked at the response that she got, because so many people have also experienced the same thing. If we stop supporting these brands and boycotting them for real and not just for a temporary week or two, they will feel it. They need the money. They need the support of Black customers. So don't think that your support doesn't mean anything. It does. So what are some ways you as a consumer can deal with racial discrimination when you are shopping? Support more Black businesses and companies that genuinely support people of color within all levels of operation. So that's companies that hire racialized staff within their corporate offices, all the way down to their store levels. That's using people of color for their marketing and advertising, and not just for photo and social media optics once a year or whenever it is trending or beneficial. And also companies that give back to Black organizations or initiatives, either locally or globally. You can find all this information out on their websites, and you know when a company is being authentic. You can tell based on the people that work there, the people that are in their advertising, the people that work at corporate level. It's not just one token person, or they don't just speak on issues one day, but then for the rest of the year, their branding, the people that work there don't look like you. Also, permanently canceling all financial support of brands that condone racial profiling and other racist tactics. In June of last year, so many companies came out saying that they were in support of Black Lives Matter. But yet, if you go on their social media accounts today, if you walk into their stores today, the promises they made about diversifying their companies didn't stick. But they knew that, cancel culture is very fickle. People will cancel you today and tomorrow they support you. So that is why they can get away with coming out with statements saying that they support Black Lives Matter, but not change the people that work at the store.
There's no reason why Aritzia could get called out the way they did and still have a majority white and Asian staff, while there's a whole market of people that actually support the brand and they won't hire them because they don't fit their quote unquote aesthetic. Another thing we can do is calling out brands that are racist and practice discriminatory practices through social media. So like SZA did with Sephora, like Carissa did with Aritzia. But however, that doesn't always lead to a response from the brands. However, because it's public shaming, is public shaming enough? Sometimes we need to go above and beyond. Maybe file lawsuits so that these brands and companies see that people are very serious. So this is the end of my presentation. I just want to close off with a quote from Pittman. And she said, "You can't train bias away, but by changing the power and incentive structures within companies and proactively improving Black consumers' experiences, companies can create real change in quelling retail racism." Thank you for listening.